Hello. In the Crown of Aragon, 639 years ago, it was January 29th, 1387. My name is Jonathan Seyfried. I'm a PhD candidate in history at the University of New Mexico, and this is the Historian's Notebook, a podcast about how history gets made. Season 1 is titled Moltcara Compagnona. We're looking at a document from each day of the first year of the reign of King Joan I of Aragon and Queen Violante de Bar. There's so many documents to choose from. Certain days have like 30 documents. So as I'm going through this, I'm wondering, oh my gosh, have I done something that's actually making me miss out on so much? And then I think about, well, I want to really get this cross-section across the entire year, and I can't just stay in one day or 1 month for, days at a time. So what am I going to do? And then I get to, well, something like what you're about to experience today. Let's get into today's document. All right, folks, fasten your historian seatbelts because there's so much going on January 29th, and it connects to so many things. We've got material culture of the registers themselves. We've got new insights into chancery practices. We've got weird familial dynamics. We've got royal families introduced into the picture for the first time. We've got so much going on. And I haven't even mentioned it's troubadour party time. Yes, it is. So one of the things that Joan is famous for in music history is being a major force for patronage of minstrels, troubadours, music, and helping to initiate a gigantic cultural diffusion into Iberia from really all over Western Europe. There's minstrels and troubadours that come from Bavaria and end up in the court of Joan and Violante. But Violante is famous for defying gendered expectations. And where is she in this accolade for Joan's cultural contributions? The way I see it, as I've been studying these two for a few years now, is that they were a team. And it's the documents like those we're going to look at today that just really brings it home for me how neither of them could do what they were doing without the other, and the accomplishments that we want to credit them with, as well as the criticisms. It really is this team project, and you cannot just study one of them and not the other, and have an accurate view of what was actually going on. And what happened on January 29th, it is a perfect example of this. Okay. I'm going to actually hold the material culture and chancery procedures until the end, because I don't want to delay anymore on really showing you what I mean by this teamwork. Remember that yesterday we talked about a document that Violante wrote to the Viscount de Roda. Ramon de Perelos is his name. So today's document doesn't at first seem to have anything to do with Ramon de Perelos, Viscount de Roda. So I'm looking at Folio 9V in Register 1751. And there's a letter that begins, it's from Joan, begins Molt car cosi. And that means most dear cousin. So who is Joan's cousin? It's the King of France. Why? Because the King of France before this one was Violante's uncle, right? So the child of your uncle is your cousin. And it's through Violante that Joan can address the King of France as cousin. And then at the bottom of this, you can see that in Latin we've got fuit missa regi Franciae. This is to be sent to the King of France. And then below that is letra similis fuit missa. So that means the same letter is going to be sent. And then the scribe has crossed out Regi Franciae because obviously that's an error. It's not the same letter is going to be sent to the same person twice. And then below has written in Duke Touraine. So this letter is going to the King of France and also someone known as the Duke of Touraine. That is the younger brother of the current King of France. His name was Louis. He later became the Duke of Orléans. And now, though, before he gets that title, he's the Duke of Touraine. Touraine is the province of France named after the city Tours. So now we know who this letter is going to, and it can be copied word for word because it's the case that both Charles VI, King of France, and his brother would be both cousins to Violante and thus Joan. So right here we've got the network connections that Violante has brought in. What is the letter about? The letter is requesting that a particular troubadour, also known as a minstrel or minstrel in the letter here, is to be sent to Joan and Violante. So they're asking for a troubadour named Colinet. And this particular troubadour, I haven't been able to find any information about what made him so sought after, but it does seem like this was the first troubadour that they sought to have commissioned from France after inheriting the throne. And I'm getting that information from an amazing piece of work, scholarly contribution by Maria del Carmen Gomez Mutané. The title is La Musica en la Casa Real Catalano-Aragonesa from 1336 to 1442. So that in English is the music in the royal court of Catalonia and Aragon from 1336 to 1442. And it's a book that has a ton of transcribed documents as well as wonderful explanation based on what we can know from the payment records as well as letters like these. And it's a wonderful resource for understanding the different troubadours who were sought after, the way that they moved through the networks created by the elites who corresponded with each other all the time. These letters are so frequent, and they're writing to each other on the same day, and then the husband and wife are writing back on the same day. So it's all just like this constant flow. It almost reminds me of like a group text. I don't know if that's pushing it too far, but like that's starting to be the vibe that I'm getting from this. So here we have Joan writing about this particular troubadour, and then I looked on the next page. Now, my project is set up in a way where theoretically I could just look at one document a day and then be done. But part of understanding a particular document that you see in these registers is glancing around the different pages to see if there's clues to understanding your chosen document more fully. And it also just so happens that I was drawn to this document from the collection put together by Touraine and by Hesi Hardy. So I knew already that there was another one on the next page. And so I turned the page, and lo and behold, who is Joan writing to just one day after Violante? Ramon de Perelos, the Viscount de Roda. And what is Joan saying? He's saying, this is just hilarious to me. He's saying, I have reached out to the King of France and the Duke of Touraine, and I'm getting these troubadours. I'm getting Colinet. So he's like amping it up. Or possibly he's hinting that Ramon de Perelos, who also has a lot of connections among the French elite, should maybe mention it. You know, hey, if you happen to be writing a letter over to France, just say, you know, Joan is really excited about Colinet. Hey, you going to send him over? So basically, you have to realize that these were like when there's a new season of your favorite show that's coming out on your favorite streaming service, right? You hear about it, you read about it ahead of time. It's something you know you like, and you want to find out what happens next, and so you're excited and you're talking to people about it. That's how these performers were for audiences, and especially the elites who could try to use their network connections to get them over faster or to get them over at all. And in fact, there's a troubadour that gets like fought over. Like, he's in the Crown of Aragon. This is a couple of years later. His name is Everly, and he's in the Crown of Aragon, and France, someone in France, I can't remember if it's the King of France or who, but it's like, you need to send him back. And Joan's like, nope, I'm not sending him back. He's awesome. We're really loving him, and he is producing amazing entertainment for us. And so you're just gonna have to wait longer. And it turns into like kind of a serious dispute. Like, there's some anger that happens there. So that's what's going on with these troubadours. So I found out that the instrument that Colinet plays is the chirimia, which is like an oboe. So it's kind of that high-pitched, almost like a bagpipe kind of sound. And basically, it's really hard for us to appreciate how fun that could have been. A lot of times the medieval music comes through as very somber when I listen to it, but you have to keep in mind that they didn't have like this larger spectrum of musical genres, and based on what they did have, they could experiment, and it could be heart racing. That's what I like to think anyway, that this music was soul stirring, heart racing. And so this is what's behind a lot of the enthusiasm that we see in these letters, or the repeated missives to, come on, send this troubadour, I'm waiting, send him, come on. Or in the case of the Portalberts, send them. And then also, big question, really interested to find out the answer, are there any solo women troubadours? That would be very interesting to find in these records. So we've got the network happening here in microcosm. We've got the connection that Joan gained from marrying Violante. We've got the Ramon de Perelos connection between Joan and Violante, one day after the other. And then, this was not mentioned in the source, the secondary literature, right below that letter to Ramon de Perelos is another treasure. It's a letter to the Duke de Bar. That's Violante's father. And how does Joan decide to begin this letter? Not even a month has passed since his own father died. He's writing to his father-in-law. How does he start the letter? Molt car pare, most dear father. I mean, he must have had some kind of emotional punch as he decided to write that letter. Maybe he always addressed the Duke de Bar as Molt car pare, but goodness, like in this moment, it must have caused him to have some thoughts like, oh yeah, this would be my most dear father at this point because my biological father is gone. So that was really interesting. And what is being discussed in this letter that's sent to the Duke de Bar? It's his health. Here he's referring to it himself, I think for the first time. And he's not using the word arduis, like the difficult business. He is instead using the word accident. Accident. And he says there was an accident with my health. And the word accident is just very loaded in our time. But I think what we really should translate this as is misfortune. There was a misfortune, and now I'm convalescing, and I have a much better disposition. And Joan is writing this on January 29th. So we've come a long way in the health journey to the point where now we're talking about it. So I guess that's a sign that it's not as serious anymore. But we'll see. I would say that this document is a very good indicator that we can say by the time January 29th arrives, we have Joan out of the woods. That would be my guess. One last part of today's episode, which has spanned multiple documents, but all on January 29th. They were all on January 29th. This other piece is back on the first page of the two that I've been talking about today, Folio 9V. And you'll notice that at the top, there's a little, like 4 lines something, and then a squiggly that covers it. That's what it looks like when they want to cross something out. So they started putting in a letter, and it looks like it ends like mid-sentence. And on the left, there's a little marginal note. And it's really hard to figure out because it's abbreviated too, and it's hard to read. But it's something like non hunc in alios, which would sort of translate to this is not here, it's in another. So in this, we've got a wonderful moment that reveals just a little glimpse of how it was not an easy, straightforward process all the time to figure out which register you were supposed to be putting which letter into. Because this scribe who started out this one, we don't know who it is because they just stopped. And, it's not like they put the probata in for my bad, for wasting paper. But basically, somebody started to record in a letter to some religious person, a priest, I think, or maybe an archbishop, because it starts with Reverend Father. I don't think it's the Pope. Ooh, I didn't even look at it too closely. But basically, the whole point is the chancery staff could get confused about where to put different documents. And in this situation, somebody caught it and said, whoa, that's not supposed to go in there. I think when you've got the secret seal at the end, you're not going to be able to put that in the officialum or the gratiarum or the commune. You're going to have to put that in one of the secret seal registers. So it's possible that this letter was intended to go into one of the others, and then maybe the scribe looked ahead to the end of it and saw, oh no, this is going in, I'm writing this in the secret seal register, and it's supposed to go in one of the others, because they're always in the dating clause talking about what level of seal the letter is going to be sent as. All right, well, a lot going on there, and I will link to the citations that I mentioned in today's episode, especially the book that is sadly out of print by Maria del Carmen Gomez Mutané, which was published in 1977. But if you can get your hands on it and you're interested in music and the history of music and this time and place, it's just a fabulous resource. And there's one table in there which I think is a really fun one, where it shows some of the particular troubadours and minstrels that were there in the court of Joan and Violante for like long durations, and it's like a bar graph kind of that shows which years they were there, and there's about like 15 of them, I think. So that I took a picture of, and I'm going to post that onto the webpage for this episode. So I hope you found this as fun as I did. I honestly could have kept going about these documents for another 30 minutes. But, we have a motto here at the Historian's Notebook. Dissatisfaction guaranteed. That's not just for you. Like, I want to keep talking about these for like another 90 minutes. So I also have to make good on the motto here. Thank you for listening to this installment of the Historian's Notebook, Season 1, Molt Cara Compagnona. And visit the website to take a look at these folios that I discussed today and the citations and show notes. Listen again tomorrow to hear about the next day in the first year of the reign of King Joan I of Aragon and Queen Violante de Bar. In the meantime, take care.